Hello there, good evening and welcome to Matchday Live as Lincoln City travel to Portsmouth looking to make it 7 games unbeaten. Plenty to get through on tonight's show. Great to have your company with us as ever. Lockdown not getting any easier, is it? But at least the football is helping keep the spirits high, certainly in League One at least. Another man doing that is Gary Hutchinson. Great to have you on the show. Gary, how are you this evening? It looks a little bit chilly in the shed this evening.
It is a little bit chilly in the staying in, and the rain's rattling on the roof like I'm camping. So yeah, wild up here in the Wolds tonight.
Gary, we're going to be getting on to the game at the weekend very shortly. Before then, the topic this evening, for those watching at home as well as letting us know the score and scorer predictions and where you're watching Matchday Live from, which I will read out throughout the show. The topic this evening is best away ground atmosphere. Of course, the Imps travelling to Fratton Park this evening. No fans, as we know, but it's a ground that's known for its brilliant away support and brilliant home support as well. So let us know in the comments what the best away ground that you've been to is in terms of support, and I'll do my best to read those out throughout the show. Gary, massive win at the weekend. Northampton started the game really strongly as well, didn't they?
Yes, they did. It was a game that I think many predicted would be a lot easier than it was. Northampton didn't go long straight away. They played some nice football. They were quick out the blocks, and I think we looked like we'd been off for a couple of weeks as well. We were a little bit slow, but class always comes good. And I thought we eased our way back into the game. We didn't panic. We did the simple things right, and in the end, it was a worthy 3 points.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? I mean, were you surprised the way Northampton came flying out the blocks, especially after what we saw, a month or so ago?
No, not at all. I said on this show that I felt that they would be a different prospect altogether. They'd made some signings. There's a little bit more confidence. I think they'd picked up 4 points from 3 games. And they were going to come here, and I think they were always going to have a go. I don't think they were ever just going to come and shut up shop for a draw. Keith Curle's never beaten us either as a manager, so he will have wanted a result. So it wasn't a complete shock. I think the way that they did it surprised me because they did play some neat football.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we just see them flying through here, nearly getting a goal themselves. Of course, the Imps managing to get it clear. But in terms of that Northampton goal that we're going to see very shortly as well, and this is obviously the Imps goal, which we're going to analyse in a sec. It's all about character, isn't it? It's all about just getting through it and getting the points at this stage.
That's what successful teams do, and we've proven time and again that when our backs are against the wall, against any level of opposition, we do have the tools and we do have the attributes to come through. And this was very much like the Wigan game for me, a game that people think that we should have won with relative ease. What a goal that is, by the way. But all these games in League One are going to be tough. All the League One clubs are well organised. They've got decent players, so we just have to take one game as it comes. But it was a nice feeling when the final whistle went.
Absolutely. Best opposition goal at the LNER Stadium that you've seen? Certainly up there, isn't it?
It is, because it's the only one I remember. I blank out opposition goals, so I can't really remember any, if I'm entirely honest.
Very wise, Gary. As you know, Gary, we've gone full Monday Night Football this evening, haven't we? We've got some tactics on the show to bring you watching at home. Do bear with us on this. We're just getting started. We're not exactly Jamie Carragher and Gary Neville, more like Eric and Ernie, I think. But this is the way the Imps lined up, or certainly this is towards the end of the game, isn't it? 15 minutes before the end of it, Gary. Just take us through this, because you were really impressed with some of the movement.
Yeah, absolutely. You can see the little triangles and the way they're playing the ball. But we talk about a run there from Brennan Johnson, I think, early in that move, that allowed Eden to pass the ball back to Grant. He created the space in front of the 16-yard area, 18-yard area.
This is the same position as well, isn't it? So this is the Conor McGrandles goal that we've just shown you, and that's the run that McGrandles makes.
Yeah, again, McGrandles run from deep. So there's 2 key elements to that goal. One of them is a ball player that doesn't even touch the ball, and that's Brennan Johnson, because he draws the defenders in, and George Grant comes across to get the ball and then give it back to Eden for the cross. It's McGrandles run from deep. McGrandles left his marker standing as he came charging in as well. It was absolutely superb. There you can see him arriving. And, he hardly has to check his run. He just takes one step on the spot as the ball comes across. I was thoroughly impressed with it. And I think that's what Conor McGrandles gives you, that maybe one or two of the other lads, certainly Morgan Rogers, wasn't offering on Saturday. And that's no criticism particularly of Rogers, but it showed to me that that's a well-rehearsed move from players that have now had 6, 7, 8 months playing together.
Yeah, I mean, that was a brilliant run from Conor McGrandles. Another player that you highlighted on social media was Teo Eden and the runs that he was making. This is a really good example, if we show you this now, of the way that he actually really likes to break forward. We don't always see, we haven't seen it necessarily throughout the course of the season in every match, but he did it here absolutely brilliantly.
Yeah, again, he's settling into move really well. And what you see there is when Grant drops into the midfield and takes the ball back from Eden, it leaves so many options. Two are going to pop up on the screen in a moment there. So he can play inside to Hopper, he can go over the top to Scully. The two that are not picked up, he's back down the line to Eden. And bear in mind, Johnson has again made that run, pulling a player away. So he's creating a little bit of space. And the fourth ball he could play there is the huge switch right over to TJ Ioma. And we've seen that on several occasions. So there's always 3 or 4 options available to Lincoln players. Now, look, it doesn't always come off. I get that. We're not Manchester City or Barcelona. But some of the movement and some of the runs that you don't see necessarily in the clips are just as important as the ones that you do.
Yeah, Kay Jackson says someone's been having fun on Football Manager. No, I've been using Tactical Pad. Our friends there have helped us out and given us a brilliant app to be using. So thank you very much to them. Still working on it, as you can probably see. The irony of all that is that my screen has gone completely blank and I can't see anything that I'm looking at the moment. So relying, as ever, on the knowledge of Gary Hutchinson. Gary, let's talk about Anthony Scully's goal then. And we'll bring those graphics back in because this was brilliant movement from Tom Hopper.
Yeah, absolutely. There's 2 key elements to this, and it's both the involvement. Hopper, really clever to keep himself on the side as he's coming back. That ball from Bridcut is superb. He knows his centre forward is going to make that run into the channel. And what Hopper's done there, he's managed to check his run, kept himself on side. He's shown the composure when he's gathered the ball to play it through to Scully. You can see here again, as everyone's tracking back, you've got McGrandles, Grant, they're all overtaking. Hopper's just coming back slowly. As soon as Bridcut picks the ball up in that channel, he knows exactly where he's going to put that ball. And look, Hopper's the one that's made the run there, but we've seen it with Johnson, we've seen it with Scully as well. Then you look across to Anthony Scully. I mean, he's got some natural poacher's instinct there because he knows as soon as Tom's got that ball, there he is, hand up, screaming for it. And that is not an easy finish because it's come across at pace. It's had to because the defender could quite easily pick it out. Now, at 1-0, the game was feeling relatively comfortable. As we know, they actually scored late. That's the danger with a 1-0 lead. So that goal was not only quality, but it was also crucial. 2 very, very good team goals on Saturday.
And a very good bit of analysis from yourself as well. Look forward to having a bit more analysis throughout the rest of the course of the season on Matchday Live. Hopefully you enjoyed that, and we'll be having a bit of a play with Tactical Pad and the analysis that comes with that throughout the course of the season. Let's hear from the manager, Michael Appleton, now. These were his post-match thoughts after the Northampton Town victory.
Yeah, possibly. You know, we've spoke about many times about being a team for all seasons and finding different ways to win games. You know, there was nothing really in it in the first half. From the territory point of view, you know, they had a little bit more territory because they do go to back to front pretty quickly, and sometimes you can get pinned in and it's difficult to get out at times. I thought we had the one big chance in the first half with Joe Walsh that, you know, probably should have taken. But in the second half, I was delighted with the way we went about it. You know, we created some really good opportunities before we scored. You felt it might have been one of those days. Keeper made a couple of good blocks. Kean made a couple of good blocks. But I think once we went ahead, I was fairly confident we'd see the game out.
Yeah, that first half, it was almost like a basketball game. Was a real pace to it.
Yeah, I think we expected that, and you know, I think we did look a little bit like a side in the first maybe 20 minutes who hadn't played for 10 days or so. And what we did well was we did the basics well in that early period. We didn't do anything but the basics well. Like, you know, the time and time again we give the ball away. Good players giving the ball away, which was unlike us. But once we got through that period, like I say, in the second half, there's some really good movement and some good bits of play.
You make a substitution and he goes and scores, so his first goal for the club.
Yeah, I just felt we needed a little bit more running beyond. You know, I think a lot of the stuff at times was in front of them. Once we switch the play, it's really important to utilise, obviously, the space that creates from switching the play. And one thing really, Connor's really good is he's got the legs and he's got athleticism. So, it gives us a little bit more impetus as opposed to try and get beyond the back four of Northampton.
Yeah, Michael Appleton delighted with the impact of Conor McGrandles, and rightly so. And Gary, I'll put that question to you regarding McGrandles and the runs that he makes. We've obviously seen the analysis there post-game. We spoke to Conor McGrandles a couple of months ago, didn't we? And he said that goals is just something that he wants to add to his game. The runs like we saw on Saturday would suggest that he's making a real change to his game. You know, he's taking it on board, and this is potentially something that we could see a little bit more of.
Yeah, absolutely. I think from a functional point of view, you could get away with Grandal scoring 3 or 4 goals a season and be happy with that, because I think there's a lot of other work that he does as well that's vital to the team. And actually, I know that he came on and he got the goal. And I know Michael said about the runs in behind, but I actually felt that he was a little bit more industrious and allowed other people to play. He does an awful lot of the dirty work. And he's not a kind of a Scott Kerr or a David Batley, that kind of player. He's not that kind of robust and unseen, but he does have that element about him. He does put in the yards. He can pick a keen pass, and I think he changed the whole outlook of the side when he came on. Again, no disrespect to Morgan Rogers, but we had 2 kind of flair players, and McGrandles isn't a flair player. He's a very, very functional player. He's a very, very good player, and I think that he made a significant impact when he came on.
Team News coming to you live in around about 3 minutes' time. Topic this evening with the Imps travelling to Fratton Park is best away ground atmosphere, whether it's away ground from the point of view of the away side in Lincoln City, and when, you know, for instance, when we took 5,000 to MK Dons or 5,000 to Ipswich Town, or whether it's, you know, from the home side's perspective as well. Of course, Portsmouth known for their brilliant home atmosphere. Just on that, Richard Godson says best away ground atmosphere. The Ricoh Arena 3 years ago would be hard to beat for me. It helps when Matt Reed opens your account with an absolute stunner and we win 4-2. And Jordan Brown says, if you're on about Lincoln supporters, Ipswich and MK Dons were pretty special as well. Owen Dawson actually says, hard to pick out the top away day, but had some wicked ones in the conference. Solihull and North Ferriby stand out on a personal note. Yeah, the good old days. To an extent, but I think we're safe to say we're enjoying things even more now, aren't we? Gary, in terms of this evening's opponents, we've not even mentioned Portsmouth, really, have we? What are you expecting from them tonight?
I'm expecting fast-paced attack. I mean, they've got some great players, both individual and team players. I mean, John Marquis is an obvious shout. He's top-quality centre-forward, could probably play in the Championship. I really like Marcus Harness. I really like, I think it's Ryan Williams, might have his name wrong there. I really like Ronan Curtis. So they're going to pour forward. They're going to want to win this game. They're a wounded animal. So what we've got to do, I think, is be relatively tight at the back, not concede early, but they are beatable. They beat us 3-1 last time with what I would consider a makeshift defence of Gotson Rowan at fullback. We're at more or less full strength tonight, so it should be a corking game.
Yeah, made a couple of changes, didn't he, Michael, at the weekend, Gary? Are you expecting the same this evening?
I'm expecting one change, which I put an article out earlier today. I'm expecting McGrandles to get a start. I think we need a slightly more functional midfield. I think when you've got a team who works as hard as Portsmouth do, probably you have to just cut down on the flair element of your own side again. I expect probably Rogers to be on the bench and McGrandles to come in.
Kay Jackson says, best atmosphere I've known as a away fan was at Maidstone towards the end of the 16-17 season. We just won the league and they were safe. So it was like a big party. Yeah, good shout, that one, Kate. I tell you what, we're right bang on 6 o'clock, which means one thing. I can give you tonight's team news. Here it is. Yep, Gary was right. Michael Appleton makes one change to the side that beat Northampton Town at the weekend. Conor McGrandles comes in and Morgan Rogers drops to the bench. The team in full then is Alex Palmer in goal, TJ Omer, Adam Jackson, Joe Walsh and Teo Eden, the somewhat familiar back four, certainly taking the weekend into account. It is then Liam Bridcut, Conor McGrandles and George Grant, Anthony Scully, Brennan Johnson and Tom Hopper, the front three, Long, Melbourne, Monsma, Jones, Howarth, Anderson and Rogers. So Lewis Monsma back on the bench, having missed out completely at the weekend. And Gary, you called it.
I did. I called it probably this afternoon as well, so I didn't have advance warning, just there for my critics. I just think that we needed a more functional midfield. The other toss-up was whether it would be James Jones who came in or McGrandles, but I think McGrandles is a little bit further ahead in terms of fitness, because obviously he got some minutes in the tank on Saturday, whereas Jones hasn't as yet. Look, this is one of the toughest games of the season. We know that. So to be at full strength, more or less, probably bar Monsma, but to have a full bench as well is crucial. What
differences do you expect tonight from a Lincoln City perspective as opposed to the game that took place back in November. It was just one of those nights, wasn't it?
It was, and bearing in mind they've got what I consider to probably be the best attack in this division, and they've got some great players. We were very much under strength. There was no Liam Bridcut, for instance, and I think when we look back at games, certainly against Northampton, the challenge, which some perceive as a penalty, he does a lot of defensive work. He will cover for the centre backs when they're pushing forward, and that's not to say that other players in that position don't do a job, but I think that the Bridcut's awareness defensively helps us probably look a little bit tighter at the back. So I certainly expect a more robust Lincoln. We've got recognised centre-backs in. I think Ioma was playing centre-back against Marquis last time as well. So we had a really, really youthful defence out, and it did look like it. But bear in mind, we were hit with a sucker punch, I think 2 goals early doors against them last time, and then we managed to keep them out. So I think we'll be tight. I think we'll see games more akin to Oxford and Charlton from earlier on in the season, where we'll wait for our chance. We'll be happy to let them have the ball out of danger areas. Could be tentative, a bit like a game of chess tonight.
Cornell says, brilliant to see Hopper starting tonight. Jacob says, good evening, Sam and Gary. Up the Imps, let's get a win tonight. Ian Hodgson says, Raggett never liked pace running at him too much, which is what we are about now, but crosses need to be low to feet. Yeah, Gary, just on that then. Sean Raggett obviously did brilliant things for the Imps a few years ago. Pace, is that something, is that possibly his sort of the weaker aspect of his game, perhaps?
If you had to pick one, maybe not. I think Sean Raggett is a very, very good League One defender. I don't think that he's a player that you can look at and say he doesn't like pace per se. But I think if you do run consistently at a centre-back who is more about the tackling, the heading and the positional, eventually you'll get some luck. I do agree fully with the point about crosses, by the way. I think our aerial presence in and around the area probably isn't as strong as many other teams. Lots of corners gobbled up by Northampton. Portsmouth will be very much the same as well. So I think playing the ball 2 feet in and around the area is the way forward.
Gary, Richard Godson's raised a good point, that it's almost a fully fit bench, if you like, for the first time in a while as well. How key could that be?
Yeah, it's good. It's massive. I mean, especially when you can make 5 substitutions you can make now, something like that. So it does give you options. Personally, I'm not a fan. I think if you're 3-0 up, okay, you can start making 3, 4, 5 substitutions in terms of resting players. But I think if you're chasing a game to disrupt too much, get what happened at Accrington, they just look disjointed. So, but he does give Michael options, and I think that's the key. So if there's a particular element of the field that's not going well, he's going to have options. He's got players that he can bring on. He probably won't want to bring Monsmer and Jones on for tactical reasons. He would probably more like to bring those on to get minutes in the tank. But we do have a full bench. We have a strong bench as well. So it's nice to be getting back up to strength.
Yeah, you mentioned it there, Lewis Monsmer back on the bench. Important that it wasn't anything serious with regards to him as well.
Yeah, definitely. Look, we've been through a really tough period when it comes to injuries and COVID and that sort of thing. And I think actually we've soaked that up fairly well. And I know we got a postponement due to a waterlogged pitch, which probably helped a little bit. But we were struggling at Wimbledon and we got the win. We were struggling for another game as well. So yeah, it's nice to see these players coming back, particularly when you think that this is only halfway through the season. So we're a week away from February and we're only 23 games in. This stage would probably usually be Christmas in terms of a real kind of normal season. So lots of football to play. So to get players back fit and get minutes in the tank is important, not just for tonight but going forward.
Yeah, we're going to be speaking to a Portsmouth fan very shortly. Gary, I don't know, we obviously haven't had a chance to see the Portsmouth starting 11 yet. Are you expecting a similar side to the one that they played back in November? Yeah,
I think so. I've kept an eye on Kenny Jackett's presses and that this week. I think that the big thing from the weekend, I think he left George Harula out the squad completely. He should be back in. But I think they're relatively full strength. Look, they're a good side. I hesitate to say great side. They've got great players. They're a good side. I know there's still a question mark from some Portsmouth fans over Jackett and whether maybe they should be doing better than they are. John Marquis wasn't cheap. I don't know the cost of Marcus Harness, but they've got good players. But this is the level you've got to be at. We've got good players too. And if there was a match day live at Portsmouth and they were talking about Lincoln, they'd be reeling off the Brennan Johnsons, the Anthony Scullys, the Tom Hoppers, and with the same sort of relish. So it's just nice to be involved in these sorts of games.
Certainly is. And another man they'd be talking about, no doubt, is Harry Anderson. These were his pre-match thoughts, speaking in his pre-match press conference yesterday.
Yeah, I feel back to normal now. Had a bit of a rough week with it, obviously. But now I feel back to myself now.
Good. And turning attention to tomorrow, obviously in the return fixture, you're involved for a short time off the bench. But what are your thoughts on Portsmouth as a team, and what sort of test are you expecting from them tomorrow?
We know that obviously they're a strong team. Obviously, when we played them at home, we lost. It was quite hard to take. They were good on the day, and it'll be nice to go there and try and repay the favour.
In that game, you used as a right back off the bench. Is a right back a position that you enjoy and possibly see yourself play more, especially with Robbie Gotts not being at the club anymore?
I prefer being more attacking personally, but obviously with the role in the team, the right back, he tends to allow you to play pretty high anyway, so you can almost play it as a winger. So I suppose it's not too bad of a role.
And as a player, do you approach games like this at the top of the league against the team and around you with a different mindset or mentality at all? Or is it just a case of another game?
No, it's just a case of another game. Obviously, feel like we've got really good momentum at the minute, and obviously it'd be nice to try and keep that going.
And obviously your away form this season has been particularly impressive, just the one defeat and I think only 5 goals conceded. What do you put that down to, the impressive away record?
I think it's the fact, obviously, like you said, the way we approach the game. Obviously, we know we're not just going to turn up and just suddenly try and play people off the teams off the pitch, and we go there with the right mentality and make sure we do all the basics right, and then that allows us to then build from that platform, which obviously helps us try and win the game.
Yeah, Harry Anderson speaking there before today's game, of course. And Gary, I love what he said there. He was asked about his position and said, do you prefer playing at right back? And he was honest. He didn't give that stock answer. He says, I'm happy to play wherever. He actually said, no, I prefer to be attacking if possible. And sometimes you've got to appreciate that honesty.
Yeah, 100%. I remember him being at Peterborough and they were trying to deploy him as a right wing back, and that was one thing he said when he moved, that he felt he was an attacking player. It's where he likes to be. It's one thing you always get from Harry. He's honest. He's an honest person. He's an honest player. I personally prefer him in an attacking role as well, but I can see how managers like him as a wing back because of the physicality that he has to his game. Whether he's quite got the right defensive mindset at the moment, I don't know, but he does fit in there well. But for me, I wouldn't class him as a reserve right back, so to speak. I think it's still an area we need to look at.
I've asked you this question before, Gary, but when you get around to the 65, 70-minute mark, how important is it that that you can bring on a player like Harry Anderson with the impact that he has, with the fact that he's willing to get into the physical stuff? He won't take any prisoners, especially when the game's being opened up, being stretched. That's when he really seems to thrive.
Yeah, he does, because he's got 2 key attributes that are brilliant off the bench. One of them is pace, and I know we had that with Zach and with Theo as well, so we've got quick wingers, but the last thing a fullback wants who's been run ragged for, let's say, 65, 70 minutes by Brennan Johnson is to look over to the sideline and see Harry Anderson coming on. I mean, I remember the goal he scored away at Forest Green where I thought that it was in fast forward until I watched the other players. So he's quick, but he's also aggressive. He won't be bullied. And I think that's interesting because few wingers actually have that attribute. Some wingers, okay, they'll take a knock, but Harry will give it back. He's as strong as an ox. There's very, very few players who have got that in this division. So it is something different. Now, that has 2 benefits. One, if you're chasing a game, fantastic. He comes on and if the opposition are trying to kick you a little bit, he'll kick back. But it's also something completely different. So if you've been knocking on the door and you're not getting any joy with one approach, Harry brings an altogether different approach, which I think, again, is really useful later on.
Yeah, absolutely. It'd be interesting to hear if Harry Anderson comes on this evening. Let me read you out the Lincoln City starting 11 for tonight's game against Portsmouth once again. Michael Appleton making 1 change to the side that beat Northampton at the weekend. Alex Palmer in goal, TJ Omer, Adam Jackson, Joe Walsh and Teo Eden, Liam Bridcut, Conor McGrandles, George Grant, Anthony Scully, Brennan Johnson and Tom Hopper, Long, Melbourne, Monsma, Jones, Howarth, Anderson and Rodgers. That is your Lincoln City starting 11. We'll be speaking to a Portsmouth fan very shortly. They're unchanged this evening from the side that actually lost 4-0 to Hull at the weekend. So I'll be asking Tom Chappell, the Portsmouth fan, about him very shortly. But before then, let's hear the pre-match thoughts of the manager, Michael Appleton.
I'll be fine down the first 20 minutes on Tuesday. Look, even losing the game, there's no doubt about that. You know, after the run that they've been on, not conceding a goal, you know, that will hurt them to lose 4-0 at home. And I'm expecting a backlash in that first 20 minutes, especially on Tuesday. We're going to have to come out of the traps and match them and compete. If not, we'll find ourselves a goal or two down, because they've got a lot of experienced players within that group. But within that group as well, they've got some really, really talented strikers and forward players who do ever so well for them. So, yeah, it's probably going to go against us in terms of, you know, if it was a 1-0, you know, they might accept, right, okay, we've been on a good run, let's go on to the next game and get a bounce back. But to lose 4-0, obviously they're going to be hurting and smarting, and we just got to make sure we're ready for it.
And in the return fixture against Portsmouth at the LNER Stadium 2 or 3 months ago, I think it's fair to say that Portsmouth were probably the better side and deserved winners. What's changed in that time to make you think that there'll be a different outcome tomorrow? The
team that will start tomorrow. And that is no disrespect to the team that started it against Portsmouth early on in the season, but we were a little bit decimated with injuries to key players. When you look at certainly, you know, that little triangle in terms of the two centre halves and you know, our number 4, you know, we had Liam Bridcutt missing on the evening. Joe Walsh and Lewis Montsman had a partnership going prior to that Portsmouth game. They were both missing in that game as well. Now, obviously, you know, we've got 2 experienced centre halves, Adam Jackson, Joe Walsh available for tomorrow. We've also got Liam Bridcutt available tomorrow, who obviously is key for us. So, yeah, it'll be a very, very different outfit in terms of what Portsmouth are going to come up against. But at the same time, you know, it'll be a good indication if that we're more than capable of staying where we are, or, you know, at this moment in time, you know, we're in a position that, you know, we're only there because it's, you know, a situation where we're halfway through the season. And I think from our point of view, we just got to make sure that we stay consistent as we have done already.
So those are the pre-match thoughts from the manager, Michael Appleton. Gary, I'll just ask you about that triangle that he talked about, the 2 central defenders in Liam Bridcutt. How big is having Liam back on a game like this evening, a player so experienced as he is, a player that's used to playing in big stadiums as well?
Yeah, massively important. I think when you see the way that we play, we like to play out from the back, and that starts with that triangle. Goes out to the centre halves or go out to Liam Bridcutt, and that's where everything starts. And then in terms of when you're actually facing opposition as well, to have somebody who's experienced, like the captain, who reads the game incredibly well, is important. As I said earlier in the show, he drops into those defensive positions when he needs to, and that gives the centre halves a degree of comfort as well, because they know that if they do get caught, if they are slightly out of position, the likelihood is that Liam Bridcutt may well be able to fill in as well. So I think that John Marquis will certainly find it harder to find chinks of space than he did last time against a makeshift side.
Good stuff, Gary. Just on that, let's bring in Portsmouth fan Tom Chappell from 4-0 written all over it blog. Tom, nice to see you. Thoughts ahead of this evening then, what are they?
Yeah, evening, gents. This is a run of 3 games now for us where they've been really tough tests. We've played Hull, and we all know the result. I'm sure you've been discussing it, and I've heard you discussing it on your show already. And we play Charlton next weekend, and then you boys are sandwiched in the middle. So you know it's a big evening for us tonight. I'm nervous. Michael Appleton was just saying, you just played the clip, that it will be a big response tonight from us, and I hope that is the case, because it was really poor last weekend, and I would hate to see a repeat pattern of what happened, seeing as both Hull and Lincoln are so close in the table. We've also mentioned that it's a pretty much not a completely different side, but there's a couple of changes since we last played you, since that 4-1 win at your place. So yeah, I'm nervous. I think both teams are, and both teams know what this game means tonight. It's a big game for both sides, and hopefully we can come away with the points, because we desperately need them.
Tom, simply put, what did happen at the weekend then? Because a lot of Lincoln fans will say that Portsmouth are one of the best sides to come to the LNER over the past few years. They're exceptional that night. From what myself and Gary have seen, they've been pretty good this season. That seemed like a really surprising result, despite the fact that Hull are clearly one of the best teams in the division.
Yeah, it was really interesting, and I would have thought that Kenny Jackett's been trying to put his finger on it for the last 24, 48 hours as to exactly what went wrong. I'll be honest, watching the game, it didn't really feel like the 4-0 scoreline did it justice. 2 of the goals came from our centre-half, Jack Watmore, off his own leg into Craig McGilvery's net. It was a massive reality check, is the phrase that I've heard being bounced around between Pompey fans in the last couple of days. It definitely brought us back down to earth. We'd had a really good run of form. We hadn't lost since the first game we played in December away at Blackpool, and this was the first game. It's also Kenny Jackett's biggest defeat as a manager for Portsmouth Football Club. The reason for it, Hull were a much better team than we were on the day, and it happens in football, especially in a weird season. I think it's one of those hopefully one of those fluke results. Given that we've had such good form, I don't think it's too much to worry about. Tonight will be a telling one for us if it is just a blip or if it is something that we need to change moving forward. But to be honest with you, I couldn't put my finger, Sam, on why it went so horribly wrong. I mean, 1 or 2-0, we would have gone, yep, fair enough, Hull City with a better side. But 4-0 against your promotion rivals, it's a tough one to take. So hopefully we can rectify that tonight and moving forward for the now second half of our season, because this marks the halfway point for us tonight.
Yeah, hi Tom. Just a quick one from me. Obviously, City fans will want to know a little bit about Sean Raggett. Somebody commented earlier they felt that pace was his Achilles heel. Is that something that you've seen, or do you feel that's a little bit way off the mark?
Gary, to be honest, he's been one of our better players. I think since we last spoke, I wasn't critical of him, but I don't think I or Pompey fans see him or saw him the way that Lincoln City fans did. He's really grown into his role at Portsmouth Football Club in the last couple of weeks. He's had some fantastic performances. Pace is not his strongest point. I don't know whether that was the same at Lincoln, but definitely for Pompey, he's not the quickest player. But we do have a team of very pacey players. I mean, Ryan Williams, Marcus Harness, Ronan Curtis are all incredibly quick. So if you're comparing him to other members of the 11, I don't think he's the quickest. He's solid for us. He's a really, really good player. He's an asset to our team. He's scored a couple of own goals, but he's also scored some goals at the right end of the pitch this season, which is really interesting for a central defender. I don't think, he gets right up there. He's in and amongst it when it comes to corners, set pieces, etc. So we're very lucky to have Sean Raggett. He's an asset to our team, and I think he was the same for Lincoln City. But yeah, we're massive fans of Sean Raggett on the South Coast.
And Tom, playing alongside Sean Raggett is Jack Watmore. I mean, what did happen at the weekend? 2 own goals is just about unprecedented. How will his confidence be this evening?
Jack Watmore's confidence been knocked a couple of times, not specifically scoring own goals, but he's been incredibly injury prone since his time with us at Pompey. Yes, to score 2 own goals, as you said, it is pretty unprecedented, but we find ourselves in unprecedented times. I think, I'll be honest with you, the first goal, Craig McGilvery saved it, he's palmed it back out, and Jack Watmore's the nearest to it, and it's come off him, he can't really do anything about it. The second goal he scores, if he doesn't touch it, the Hull City centre-forward sliding in, and he's going to score anyway. So, probably the first one wouldn't have gone in if Jack Watmore wasn't there, but the second one definitely would have done. So it's going to knock his confidence, but I think it's also, he's going to use that to inspire him to do better, I hope. And I hope that it works in that way rather than as a detrimental factor for the team this evening. So hopefully we'll be really frustrated by that on Saturday, because that's not what we're all about. And as I said to you earlier, we haven't lost under Kenny Jackett 4-0 ever before since Saturday. So hopefully confidence will be boosted by another tough test this evening, and hopefully we can play a similar way to the way we did at your place earlier on in the season.
Tom, just a final point. We've mentioned the likes of Marcus Harness, Ronan Curtis, John Marquis quite a bit on the show, and the fixture a few months ago as well. Other players to look out for this evening, ones that have perhaps gone under the radar from a Pompey point of view. Who would you say?
Ryan Williams is definitely an unsung hero in our side. He's really started to hit some form in terms of goal scoring. He scored one against AFC Wimbledon this time last week, and that was brilliant to see. A massive boost for his confidence playing in the side. He's pacey. I think he was involved in a couple of goals in the reverse fixture, as you say, a couple of months ago. Yes, the favourites of John Marquis and Ronan Curtis are always spoken about. I'd say one more for me would be Tom Naylor, our captain. He does a lot of work that goes unnoticed within the side. He's really a driving force. He's our organ grinder as such. He's really important to the side, and although he doesn't score the goals, he makes a lot of things happen that people don't recognise. So I think definitely Tom Naylor, Ryan Williams, and then the obvious John Marquis and Ronan Curtis will be looking to cause some problems for you this evening.
Let's finish on a score prediction from yourself then. Are you going to bounce back after the weekend?
Let's hope so. I'll go for the same as we did earlier on in the season. I'll go for another 4-1 tonight. That'd be lovely.
Oh, no. On that note, Tom, we'll let you get off and hope that you're wrong.
Good luck, fellas.
Thanks, Tom. Great to have Tom Chappell from the 4-0 written all over it blog on. Hopefully he's wrong there, Gary. Why did I think it was 3-1?
It was 3-1.
It was 3-1, wasn't it?
Yeah,
He's making me doubt myself.
Yeah. I certainly hope he's wrong. I think, I think we'll be a little bit more robust. But just listening to that roll call of players, I mean, Tom Naylor is a player. Again, I think he was at Burton a while ago, and he's such a good footballer. Andy Cannon's not a bad player in the middle of the park as well. So it's a big test tonight. And, in 2 hours or so's time, Lincoln fans will have a much clearer picture of where we are in terms of the promotion race.
Is it the worst time to be playing Portsmouth, off the back of a result like that? Because Kenny Jackett will be asking some serious questions of his players, won't they? They can't have another result like that in a row. We know that the relationship between Pompey fans and Kenny Jackett isn't fantastic, to say the least. So if they go and lose 3 or 4-0 this evening, from Pompey's point of view, it could be almost disastrous, really.
It could be a tough time. If they'd won on Saturday 4-0, it would be an even worse time because they'd be full of confidence. Also, there hasn't been as much time for him to work, not only on correcting Saturday, but then prepare for us as well. So I don't think there's ever a great time to go away to Fratton Park when they're pushing for promotion. But I actually think it could work in our favour. They may be a little bit demoralised. They may be like a wounded tiger. But also, if they've been on a bit of a run, it may be now that they're going to go on a little bit of a negative run. And looking at Kenny Jackett's sides, the Portsmouth sides of the past, that tends to be the case. They do really well, then they fall away a bit, and then they pick up a bit. So hopefully Saturday was the start of a run of tough games that they actually struggle in.
Plenty of big games in League One tonight. Let's take a look at some of the other League One fixtures taking place. And Gary, I'll ask you actually about Accrington Stanley versus Hull. I know we had a chat before the show, and we picked out a few, and I didn't actually pick that one out. But looking at it and looking at the league table, which we will do shortly, that's a massive game, isn't it?
It is. I think Accrington have fallen away a little bit of late. They looked like they were going to gate crash the playoffs. I think that they put a lot of hard work in there, and the sum is greater than the parts, all that sort of stuff. But I think that's Hull's game. They're on such a good run. I thought Portsmouth would do them at the weekend, and they didn't. They're the team to catch. It is a tricky tie. It is always tough to go to Accrington. Even without fans in, it's a small, tight ground. It's going to be very different to what the Hull City players are used to. But I just think that Accrington are beginning to go into a little bit of a slump, which would concern me if I was John Coleman.
And if we have a look at some of the other League One fixtures this evening as well, I will put Doncaster Wimbledon to you, Gary. Thoughts ahead of that one?
Yeah, another interesting one. Doncaster obviously on the back of a big FA Cup game at the weekend. I know they got beat, but it could be after the Lord Mayor's show because it was a big event for them. Wimbledon do make it tough to play. We saw that when we went to their place. They do like a long ball towards an Ollie Palmer, or they've got Joe Piggott as well, so they're likely to get the goals. Doncaster signed John Bostock today, though. Won't play tonight, not in time, but he will be there for them at the weekend. They've made some interesting signings. How they deal with Ben Whiteman and whether Bostock can slot into that position and be effective will dictate whether Doncaster are serious promotion contenders or not. But I fancy them to take 3 points against Wimbledon tonight. Someone's
just told me that Accrington versus Hull is 0-0 at half time. Of course, it was a what time was it? 5:30 kickoff, which is probably why myself and Gary Hutchinson didn't discuss it before the show. But as ever, he navigated that one pretty well. In terms of the other League One fixtures this evening, Peterborough, of course, in action playing Bristol Rovers, and Peterborough now coming into the sort of form, Gary, that we do tend to see around this time of the season.
Yep, they're another one like Portsmouth that tend to come into form and then go out of form. Probably a side that when there's expectation heaped on you, as there always is at London Road and Fratton Park, if you get a defeat, it can sometimes knock that confidence. And they are in good form. I didn't think they were that special against us a couple of weeks ago. Obviously, they got their win on Saturday. It's a tough game. Paul Tisdale, opposition manager there, I think is experienced manager. Bristol Rovers not pulling up any trees, but as we saw when they came to our place, albeit under Ben Garner, they can spring a surprise. So something about Peterborough, something doesn't grab me. I know that they've got great players, but I think that they're relying on the skill of individual players rather than the team approach. I'll probably have to eat my words come May when they win the title, as I predicted. But yeah, I wasn't impressed with them when they played us a couple of weeks ago.
Getting towards the end of the show, of course, kick-off at 7 o'clock this evening. I'll give you details on how you can get your match pass if you don't very shortly. Gary, let's have a look at the Imps' next 5 fixtures then, because Michael Appleton has described it as almost a pivotal time in terms of the season, hasn't he? Excuse me. Portsmouth away from home this evening, then Doncaster, Gillingham away. Teams managed by Steve Evans, never easy to play against, particularly away from home. And then, of course, that massive one against Hull City, followed by Accrington. I know we say it a lot, or certainly I say it a lot, but this does seem like an absolutely massive period coming up when you look at some of those games, Gary.
It does. Not sure the Hull game. Is that in the EFL Trophy on the 9th of February?
It is. It is in the EFL Trophy. I realised it as I was saying it. Yeah.
I've done that. I did that with Accrington a couple of weeks ago. So, when you look at that, I mean, obviously there's the Doncaster game and there's this game tonight. I think that's pivotal. That was the group of games for me. And I think I said if we took 7 points from the 3 games, we'd be doing well. So a point tonight and win against Doncaster would be great. Gillingham and Accrington, look, if you want to finish in the top 2, if you want to be in the Championship next season, they're games that you've got to feel you can go and win. I feel they're games that Lincoln City can go and win. I wasn't particularly impressed with Accrington in the Cup. I know that they had a different side out. But when we went to their place as well, yeah, they were strong. Yeah, they were organised. But I didn't think they threatened us particularly. They've got an awful record at Sincil Bank as well. The big clash there with Gillingham, with it being on television, I think that is kind of an added bonus for both clubs. Obviously, Steve Evans, always a tough manager to go up against, but pound for pound, we're infinitely better than Gillingham as well. But you've got to win on the night, haven't you?
Not had this officially, but I think the EFL Trophy one, Gary, is TBC in terms of when it's being played. Hull Lincoln away from home Tuesday the 9th of February. So if we just go back to that graphic quickly, I hope I'm not bringing it up and it's being wrong again. But I think that is League One. I know the games are coming thick and fast, so we lose track, or certainly that's my excuse for losing track. But it's just a massive time, isn't it? Really,
it is. Look, whenever we play Hull, whether that's the league fixture, I feel rather embarrassed that I don't know that. I'm being told the league game on the 9th, so I was wrong. My apologies.
So
we've got three huge games against Hull, and they could be season defining. If we beat them in the EFL Trophy, big prize money, progression to the semi-final, potential Wembley, double header in the league. If you were to take points from those, it's going to leave us in a good place in the title race. So in actual fact, over the next couple of months, Lincoln City and Hull City are going to go some way to defining each other's success this season. But isn't it great? Isn't it great? Somebody mentioned earlier North Ferriby. So we went to the banks of the Humber and played Hull City's little cousin, where I actually sat in a tree and watched the second half. And now we're sat here talking about 3 games against Hull, potential Wembley and potential Championship. It's frightening times.
I just love the thought of you climbing trees to watch away games, Gary. Absolutely brilliant. This is the league table. Come a couple of hours then this evening, Gary. Where do you see Lincoln City in that?
I fancy us to take a draw tonight. But I think Peterborough are winning. I think somebody said at the moment, I think they've kicked off early. I might be wrong. It's Gillingham winning. But Peterborough, I fancy to get the win tonight. So, yeah, possibly third, but we'll still be in and around it, and that's all you've got to do. 23 games in, if somebody had said you'd be in the top 3, I would have taken it all day long.
Certainly would. Gary, your score predictions have been absolutely bang on the money these last few weeks. So I'm not going to give you an option to get out of one this evening. Let's have it.
I've just said a draw, but seeing as my score predictions have been bang on, let's go 1-0 Lincoln.
There you go. We'll take it, won't we? Gary, really appreciate your time. Gary Hutchinson is off to climb a few more trees. See, if you do a gag on live TV, you need to get it right, don't you? Gary Hutchinson off to climb a few more trees. I'm off to make a cuppa. Do enjoy the game. You can get your match pass at www.weareimps.com/ifollow. Enjoy the game for now.